What if there was a body of wisdom that could tell you the truth? It could explain everything that ever did, is, and will happen. Would you listen? If you watch to the end of this video, it means you care about the truth. What I'm going to tell you now is based on Kabbalah, the three principles that govern all of reality. And in fact, one of the greatest theories in the world is called game theory, has proven this concept. In fact, it goes way beyond game theory. Game theory, like all of science, basically ends where mysticism begins. As one of the great physicists said, that science went deep, 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 deep into the atom to understand that what we can't understand. He says, like this guy climbing up to the peak of the mountain, and there's a monk. He says, I told you. And so, where science ends, where game theory ends, the truth is, that's where it begins. So everything that occurs, I mean, it's a very, very vast subject. I can't do justice to the subject in a very short video. But very simply speaking, I want to relate it to the times that we're in, because this is very, very important. If you understand the past, the present, you understand the future. And then clearly from a human perspective, humans always lived in groups. But there are always two kinds of groups. One is what we will call savages, and they believe that might is right. And it's a lot more prevalent than people realize, because when we look at a country, let's say Syria is a very good example of that, and everything looks okay. And then sudden there's a civil war, 500,000 people are murdered by the government, and it's like chaos. It's Libya. In other words, so what was happening before? Was it a civilized country? The answer is no. It was a might is right country, and then whoever thinks that they can take over will take over. Pretty much, I lived in Africa for many years. That's how Africa works. That's how the Arab countries work. That's how China works. That's how many Asian countries work. They're not democracies. They are full-fledged. But remember, it's not like the dictator. We have this imagination that the dictator is an evil guy. No. Everybody believes that might is right. That's how people interact. I once went to was a technology fair. Anyway, so there was a Russian company there. We were dealing with very big numbers and everything. And I mean, they were like, nobody else was like this. But as soon as you approach the booth, they're like, sign here, sign here. It's like, we didn't even say hello. But in their world, might is right. If they can get you to sign, then they can force you to do the deal. It's like that made sense in their world. And everybody knows that's how it works. That's how it works. There's no other way. So that is the normal way. That's what people that have safety don't realize. That's how most people function. And it's not a fun place to be in. I've been there. Everybody's basically in a survival mechanism. And that's game theory. And basically, in that way, people hate each other, because the other person really is a threat. But then there's the exact opposite. And it takes thousands of years to get to this way. And that is where people understand that we have to have civilization. We have to have law and order. We have to have democracy, right? It's not fair that one person should be in charge. So what do? They say, okay, we're going to elect someone. But what happens then is that people grow up in safety. And when they grow up in safety, they lose touch with reality. Not with their reality, but with reality in general, which is how most people function, which is not in safety, and this is a perfect example. I asked a Mexican lady, she was here, and I knew this because I came from South Africa, but I just wanted to verify. So I asked her, did you feel safe in Mexico? She says, no, we could have been killed by gangs. So we don't understand that I'm living in a safe suburb. We don't get that. But people that don't live in safe suburbs, places that are run by gangs, they understand that. I met an Arab woman from actually originally America. She was in Jordan. She was a chef in one of the UN refugee camps for the Syrians. I mean, the Arabs are savages. They're busy raping women. It's terrible what goes on there. A woman in the Arab cities, and I think it may be in a lot of places, certainly in Arab cities in Israel, They're not allowed to like leave their home at 6 o'clock. This one lady, a whole story. Her husband didn't come home once, and she was very nervous, so she went to her grandmother just to make a. Anyway, the guy beat her up so badly that she lost her baby. I mean, we're talking about savages. People are killing their daughters for the daughter gets raped, and they kill the. It's like we're talking about total evil. But remember, that is how their society functions. It's normal. So there has to be something between this kind of complete naive, everybody is beautiful, because if you can't even believe what I'm saying, then you're naive, because it's a fact. So there's the fear factor where I have to protect myself from everyone. In fact, a lot of women have control freak tendencies, as one very bright woman told me. Why? Because they have more fear. And some men, depending on their society, have less control freak tendencies because they have less fear. So you go more into fantasy. Like I say, if you had a dime for every great business idea a man came up with, you'd be a multimillionaire. So the bottom line is this. There's a third reality, a third dimension that doesn't have to do with your emotional state and the reaction that you have. Now, every single person is going to be in a reactional emotional state. You can't not be. It's just a question of how much are you in the state of love, how much are you in the state of fear. But the third way is you connect to God. There is a God who made us. Look, if you have a problem with this, every single thing that's living has DNA. It's a code. The code of DNA is 5,000 books. Now imagine 5,000 books written. If I showed you an encyclopedia, it's got, 20 books. Now imagine 5,000 books. And it's a serious code. It's not gibberish. It creates a human. And I said, oh, by the way, that's just evolution. Really? Evolution, a code for a kangaroo, a code for a cockroach, a code. Billions and trillions of codes that create all these different things are evolution. So the point is that everything was created, was literally written by God. And so then you have to understand that God gives us free choice. You want to deny God, you can do that. But if you want to engage with God, and I'm going to give you a practical mechanism how in a minute, you can do that too. And so the simple fact is that the Bible is true. It's really real. God really came to the Jewish people, and he really wants us to behave. He really wants us to be good. And there's 613 laws. You can go to my website. I have a book called, my website, KabbalahWisdom.org. I have a book, God's Guide. I have many books, Ethics from God. And these are things that God wants us to do. He wants us to forgive. He doesn't want us to be angry. He wants us to be kind. He wants us to be honest. He wants us to be productive. These are all things that God wants. And those are the definition of good. And if you have a question, you can ask God directly. It's an amazing thing. If you ask God, I don't know, should I go right or left? The first thought that comes to you is God's reply to you. This is amazing. It's unbelievable. Now, obviously, the programmer of this code is infinitely beyond the whole thing. So he's like a computer. He can deal with infinite users at the same time. And so the bottom line is, where we're up to as a society is that we have some people that grow up in safety, and then we have other people that grow up in fear. And a perfect example of this is the Arabs, that I don't want to go too deeply, and I certainly don't want to shame them, but they have this ancient anti-Semitism against the Jews because they were kicked out of the house, and they have this kind of shame. It's sad that they have shame, but they have the shame, and when a person has shame, they have jealousy. That's how bullies come, because the person who's a bully, why is he a bully? A tough guy? Because he thinks that people shame him, because somebody has shamed him, and so now he's worried about the worriness. Like I said before, that anxiety creates his consciousness, creates his reality. And then he's jealous of people that haven't been shamed. So he starts to find faults in them and starts to criticize them. But what happens is that the naive people start to believe the bullies. So instead of looking to God for truth, they're looking to the bullies for truth. And the Arabs spread this lie. I couldn't believe it. I saw from a Jewish website, somebody calls Israel apartheid. The only place that Arabs are free is Israel. It's the only place that they can vote. It's the only place that they're not locked up, that they're not imprisoned. I mean, obviously some Arab countries let them go, but they don't have freedom in any Arab country except for in Israel. So you should say Israel is the only liberty for Arabs. But again, it's just a lie, and people repeat it. Why? Because the naive people buy into the bully savage people because a lot of times they're afraid. They don't have that courage. They haven't self-developed. And so the only way forward for us is each individual has to self-develop. And I have a rule. My rule is see something, say something. So you're on social media and you see a lie, address it, do something about it. And first of all, we have to get, because they say that fake news works even when you know it's fake, because you don't want to believe that it's fake. And what you believe is what you want to believe. So when you want to believe that somebody's telling you the truth, you believe it, even though subconsciously you know it's not true. And there are studies that prove this. So number one, get rid of all the false information from your life. Stop the news, stop the media, certainly pornography. It's all false, evil information. And there's only one source of truth, only one. And that is Judaism and the Jewish laws and the Bible and what God has to say. If I may say, I mean, I've written about 20 books. I'm an expert on this field. You can go to my website, KabbalahWisdom.org, and study a lot and engage. And I've given you a mechanism, engage with God. That is the only way forward. And last but not least, hopefully the Messiah will be here any minute. We are going to, those that are good are going to live forever. Those that are not, they're going to pass on. And it's not a joke, because this is just a temporary station. Many people had near-death experiences, many doctors, neurosurgeons, and they've come back, they've reported another universe. There's another reality out there. There's really a heaven where millions and billions of people exist as we speak this moment. Angels, it's a real place. And, either you get there or you don't. It's not a joke. And Moshiach is going to come soon. And without going into too many details and just to generalize it, also, either you're going to be in or you're going to be out. It's not a joke. And if you want to be in, you got to engage with God. In 1 second, you can turn your life around to be in. You say, God, I want to be yours. I'm here for you. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Read the Bible, do your best, ask God. And that's it. That's all you have to do. But if you don't do it, don't expect that when the Messiah comes soon or when you get to heaven, because everybody's died, right? People think they're God, but everybody's died. That, I say there's freedom of choice. There's no such thing as free consequences. So I want to end on a high note, which is that it's amazing. God came to us. He gave us the Bible. He told us how to behave. He tells us what to do. All the answers are there. We have 3,333 years of Jewish wisdom and masters and saints and scholars and prophets and prophetess. And it's written. It's in front of your face. You go to Chabad.org and study your whole life. You can go to Ask the Rabbi section. You'll have a live scholar teaching you, engaging with you. You're welcome to come to my website. But for crying out loud, get with the program, because the program loves you. It created you from love. And it just wants to empower you to live a good, meaningful life.